UFOs in Antiquity. Who piloted them? And the Egyptian Pharaoh who witnessed what a UFO swarm did in his area in Egypt. The frightening witnessing of a Pharaoh. Isn't this a beautiful building? This is an ancient Egyptian temple, the Temple of Seti in Abydos, Egypt. Look at the perfection of this architecture. Standing 3,500 years after it was built. This is where the Abydos stele is found, an area of Egypt, Abydos, and you'll see what was engraved in that stele. Now, what happened in ancient Egypt at the time of basically about 40 years before the first date of the Exodus? There are two dates, one being the first date being around 1446 BC, according to 1 Kings 6, and a later date of 1250 BC, at the time of Ramesses II, at the time of, as we know from the Ten Commandments, Ramesses took over his father Seti. Now, the first date, the early date of 1446 BC, is the date of the 18th dynasty during the reign of Thutmose III. And this is when the UFO sighting, according to the Tully Papyrus, took place, the time of King Seti III, they believed, concerning these UFOs that they described as strange, fiery disks coming in the sky. So we should not be astonished. We have UFO sightings even at the time of Alexander the Great. I did refer to this concerning what Alexander the Great saw. He had gone to the desert of Taklamakan of China with 30,000 of his warriors, and he lost 10,000 of them there. Taklamakan meaning you go in but you never come out. And he went there on purpose. His intention was to meet an extraterrestrial Atlantean Hyperborean who was to land there with his aircraft and also give him a special weapon. And some believe it was, quote unquote, the lightning rod of Zeus. And with this, he believes that it was one of the hidden technologies of the Atlanteans that would allow you to change dimensions, go from one dimension to another. I do have a playlist of the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean or Hermes Trismegistus, and one of the technologies he describes as there very clearly is that they had the technology to switch from this frequency that we're at now to another frequency, another dimension. And according to Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, they had such advanced technology that they were using it despite being commanded by the divine spirit not to. And they were using it to the detriment of us earthlings, us humans. So this is since antiquity, sightings of UFOs not only in Egypt or ancient Greece or China or ancient Japan or ancient India. We have the Vimanas of India, as we know, the flying saucers of India, and even the extraterrestrials landing called the Anu by the Native Americans. So we do have ancient records of not only flying craft, but the humanoid occupants, the pilots of them. So we do have the UFOs. This is a special topic of interest today because of the fact that the government, the US government, is opening of the UFO and ET files to the public, and we'll see what comes out of that. The most popular and well-known report of UFO sightings took place in Roswell, New Mexico, the United States, July 4th, 1947. That's a very famous sighting. And there's some debate whether it was actually an air balloon or an actual UFO. So archaeologists, though, have found the hieroglyphs in the pyramids of Egypt. One of the temples here, the Seti, the objects of unidentified flying objects, and also helicopters, jets, or even blimps. So we find that these descriptions are basically shown. This is one of them here of the Tully Papyrus UFO looking thing, okay? So we have very strange symbols, hieroglyphs coming from the ruins of ancient Egypt, showing flying objects such as UFOs, as we would describe them in modern times. And we ask, who drew these things? Obviously, they were told to keep records of them, as we will see from the Tully Papyrus, that was scribed by what the Pharaoh of Egypt, Tutmosis III, witnessed. So while it's not necessarily clear evidence of extraterrestrial life, it could be, for example, advanced human technology, ancient human technology. We still don't have the answers of what took place in our antiquity. We do have mythology concerning stories of gods or demigods who traveled through the sky, and depicting them in ways that resemble modern description of our humanoid aliens. Now, the Egyptians were not, as we said, the only ones to have depictions of flying objects. We have the ancient Hindu literature referring to the Vimanas, the flying machines used in mythical battles. And it was said that these Vimanas could fly in the Earth's atmosphere and in space as well, and that they could reach distant planets. It could even fly or very quickly navigate underwater. And in the Mahabharata, there's a story about the mythical long-lasting war between the Pavanas and the Kauravas, containing elements that are probably mentioned in Hindu history. The war was desired by these quote-unquote gods because they wanted to stop overpopulation on Earth. And Swami Prabhupada insisted that it's not just a religious text, but it's a real story of the Hindu people. And he claims that in this battle, the gods participated in the war with flying machines, flying vehicles that used super weapons with effects that, according to their description, are very similar to modern nuclear weapons. Let's remember that we have some archaeologists and scientists claiming that there are areas of India that have the proof of having been bombed by some kind of a nuclear event. So the Indian text referred to journeys through the heavens in flying vehicles, as we said, and large beams of light that sounded like thunder. So we don't know yet what that kind of technology was, but this is what was in their records. And also, we believe that various references in the Bible, for example, the book of Ezekiel, claiming that he got onto a craft and he was guided away from Earth. He was looking at Earth, then he was looking at his area, he was looking at the rivers, and then the oceans, and then out through space into the sky. So obviously he describes what was somehow something taking him away, and that this entity was telling him concerning God's plan for humanity. So what is this report concerning gods or angels? It's similar in detail to reports of people who claim to have been in contact with UFOs or quote-unquote aliens. So we're still investigating all this. Other interesting elements indicate contact of ancient people with extraterrestrials. we said that we have extensive reports by the Native Americans claiming that they were tall, fair, and with whitish blonde hair and blue eyes, giving them information, technology, and laws for their society. And they called them friends from the sky. And in Central America, dating back to the pre-Columbian period, we have artifacts which are perfect models of flying ships, and also Native American carvings, hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, representing extraterrestrial visitors or even UFOs. So these were obviously not from their imagination. These sightings were worldwide in Antiquity, and this, as we said, is what is found in the Temple of Seti in Abydos. Now, according to Wikipedia, the Temple of Seti was built by Seti I in Abydos, who was the father of Ramesses II, who was the pharaoh at the time of the Exodus from Egypt. This is according to the time of the Exodus having the late date of 1250 to 1220 BC. So, Seti, Temple of Seti, Seti I built it, and the temple use was for a mortuary temple to carry the pharaoh cult, and it said it was used for the Osiris temple. So it's in excellent condition, as we know, and this is where we find the hieroglyphs, the helicopter hieroglyphs. The images results from carved stone being reused over time. The initial carving made during the reign, as we said, of Seti I, and translates to "he who repulses the 9 enemies of Egypt." The carving was later filled in with plaster and recarved during the reign of his son, Ramesses II, who was the pharaoh at the time of the Exodus, with the title "He who protects Egypt and overthrows the foreign country." And over time, the plaster eroded, leaving the inscriptions partly visible and creating an effect overlapping hieroglyphs. And this is what they look like. Very strange that they're looking like helicopters and blimps and UFOs as well. So Seti I was the father of Ramesses II, who, as we said, is the late date of the Exodus of Egypt, preferred by many historians and archaeologists, aligning with the reign of Ramesses II, correlating with the biblical descriptions of the Hebrews building store cities named. So the early date being 1446, at the time of Thutmose III. This is when we have the UFO sighting having to do with the Tully Papyrus. Now, the Tully Papyrus, very interesting, because we have a translation of what was inscribed there concerning UFOs over ancient Egypt and the mystery that took place. It was a swarm of UFOs. The Egyptian text records the event supposedly occurring in the 18th century, around 40 years before the first date of the time of Exodus, the early date. So about 40 years before the first date, the early date, the time of Pharaoh Thutmose III of the 18th dynasty. And it's a strange, little-known story of what happened, and it was documented in ancient Egypt from what is called the Tully Papyrus. And it was translated by Alberto Tully, and alleged the papyrus became a hit with UFO-related folklore. And there are many who believe that this is undeniable proof of alien existence and UFO existence since antiquity, about 3,500 years ago. The papyrus, translated by Prince Boris de Retsch-Wils, declared that the papyrus was part of the annals of Pharaoh Thutmose III, 1446 BC. And there's detail in the story. Nothing in the ancient text refers to the pharaoh by name. In fact, it makes citing the things even more suspicious. But what does it translate? What does he say? He says, in the year 22, third month of winter, 6th hour of the day. That's about, the first hour is about 6 in the morning. So 6th hour would be midday, 12 o'clock noon. 6th hour of the day, the scribes of the House of Life found it was a circle of fire that was coming in the sky, though it had no head. The breath of its mouth had a foul odor. Its body, 1 rod long, that's about 150 feet, and 1 rod large. It had no voice. The hearts became confused through it. Then they laid themselves on the bellies. They went to the king to report it. His Majesty ordered has been examined as to all which is written in the papyrus of the House of Life. His Majesty was meditating upon what happened. And now after some days had passed over these things, lo, they were more numerous than anything. In other words, more UFOs, swarms are coming in, more numerous than anything. They were shining in the sky more than the sun, to the limits of the 4 supports of heaven. Powerful was the position of the fire circles. We're talking about the UFOs. The army of the king looked, and on his Majesty was in the midst of it. It was after supper. Thereupon they, that is the fire circles, we're talking about the UFOs, went up higher, directed to south. Fishes and volatiles fell down from the sea. It was a marvel never occurred since the foundation of this land. It caused His Majesty to be brought incense to pacify the hearth. What happened in the book of the House of Life to be remembered for eternity. So he was lighting incense to obviously pray to the gods to protect his country. Now, Cedric Leonard provides more translation to help with this understanding. And he says, in the year 22, the 3rd month of winter, 6th hour of the day, among the scribes of the House of Life, it was found that a strange fiery disk was coming in the sky. It had no head. The breath of its mouth emitted a foul odor, and its body was 1 rod in length, 1 rod in width. It had no voice. It came towards His Majesty's house. Their hearts became confused through it, and they fell upon their bellies. That is, people, of course, when they sighted this, they were awestruck. They went to the king to report it, and His Majesty ordered that the scrolls located in the House of Life be consulted. His Majesty meditated on all these events, which were now going on. After several days had passed, they became more numerous in the sky than ever. They shined in the sky more than the brightness of the sun, and extended to the limits of the 4 supports of heaven. Powerful was the position of the fiery disk. The army of the king looked on, with His Majesty in their midst. It was after the evening meal, when the disks ascended even higher in the sky to the south. Fish and other volatiles rained down from the sea. I guess what happened, it could be that, who knows, they were somehow transporting water and they were discarding the fish or whatever debris was found in the water, who knows. So fish and other volatiles rained down from the sky, a marvel never before known since the foundation of the country. And His Majesty caused incense to be brought to appease the heart of Amun-Ra, the god of the 2 lands, and it was ordered that the event be recorded for His Majesty in the annals of the House of Life to be remembered forever. Isn't that strange? So should we say that the Tali Papyrus is a credible source having to do with supposed UFO sightings that took place around 1480 BC. That was witnessed not only by the Pharaoh, but by his whole court there. So it's safe to assume that ancient Egypt would not have misinterpreted these fiery UFOs with rare astronomical phenomena, since they were very advanced when it came to astronomy. Their expertise in astronomy and other sciences make many historians believe the Egyptians would have been capable to tell the difference between astronomical phenomena and unexplained UFO sightings like this. Let's remember the Giza pyramids were aligned and built, whoever built them, we don't know, mirroring Orion's belt. So we still have a lot to learn concerning what was going on with UFOs in antiquity. So take it as you will. We have more to come from UFO and ET disclosure from the US government specifically. So we'll have to take into account what will be disclosed to us and investigated. We'll find ourselves in front of very clear, strong evidence that could solve all our questions. Until then, we will keep our minds open to all versions. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.